Hello, this is International Master Mauricio Arias, and I'm here to talk with you about the Philidor Endgame today. The last few weeks, somehow, I got several new students, and even if many of them were really good already at playing chess, most did not know this super important endgame. So today I'm here to explain it to you, hopefully in 5 minutes or less. So the basic idea is really easy. We have an endgame with king and pawn and rook against a king and a rook. And this is an example of the kind of position that we aim as the defensive, as the defender. Okay, where our king is in front of the pawn or in the same line as the pawn, trying to make things hard for white to get a queen, and our rook is somewhere around the board trying to help us in the fight. So the basic idea is that we want to put our rook on the 6th line to stop the white king from advancing. So that will make that eventually, sooner or later, white will have to do one of two things. He will try to bring the rook to the 3rd line, for example, like this, to try to trade rooks. But if white managed to do that, basically all the time the endgame is going to be a draw. Okay, this is a completely draw pawn endgame. If we manage to go to f6, if white managed to go to f6, it will be the same result. You skip with the rook on the 3rd line, and whenever white comes there, we will trade rooks, and it's a draw. So if white wants to have some progress, he will eventually have to advance the pawn, and this is why our king um, in front of the pawn is important, on the same line as the pawn is important, because once this happens and the pawn advances, the king has nowhere to hide. So we should go backwards with our rook and start attacking from behind. And white has no way to avoid the draw. I will give him a million checks, and when the king goes far enough from the pawn, I will attack the pawn with my king and the rook. And if he tries to cover the checks with the rook somehow, when that happens, once again, the pawn endgame should be a draw. Okay, this is a completely draw pawn endgame. Eventually, I guess I will cover that one too, but for now, let's focus on Philidor. Because as I say, I only have 5 minutes or less. So let's see another example. Okay, well, if you have this position, you should know by now what to do. No, we'll bring our rook to the 6th line. If white tries to advance with the king, I will just give a check, and I will stay with my rook over there. Okay. Uh, Eventually, white will have to advance the pawn. Look, I could give check with the rook on b5, but the safest way is to stay with my rook on the 6th line. Eventually, white will have to go into this position, and as we know, we go back with our rook, and we will attack the king from behind, and the endgame is draw. So I guess I should show you what happened if I cannot go with my rook to the 6th line, because white already occupies that line. Well, here I will just wait with my rook in a situation where I could give a check. Like I will put my rook on h2. And if the king goes, well, check will take the rook. So let's go. Let's guess he goes to the other side. Well, I will come here. Once again, anytime he tries to go for this endgame, is a draw. Every time he advances the pawn, I should create a chapter, no? Every time I can go for this endgame, that's a draw. Let's do this again. What happens if it's a rook, a knight endgame, or a rook endgame? Well, then the draw could be way easier. Not always I will need to go into the Philidor endgame. Like for example, on this situation, even if I cannot go for the Philidor, this is a draw. White has no way to exploit the position of my king, so even if I don't get the Philidor, I should draw the endgame. Now, let's go back to the first endgame, just for a bit. Let's say that I don't play like that as black, I just give check. This is a losing endgame. Let me show you real fast. I threaten to give check and then checkmate or promote the pawn. Like for example, this check. And king goes forward and the pawn will promote, no? So the passive defense usually is not an option. We'll see later in another video with rook and knight and pawn is a draw, but here he's going to give me checkmate or trade the rooks. And most games are going to finish more or less like that. So just remember, if you can go for the Philidor idea, go for it. I could show you a lot of examples, more complex than the ones I show you already, but again, I have 5 minutes, probably past the time limit, and I just want to explain the basics of this endgame. So basically, we need to put the king on the square where the pawn is going to promote, or one of the squares next to it should be okay, because that will also stop the white king from hiding. And my rook should go to the third line. Even if the situation happens with all these few lines behind, like for example like this, I could just stick with that plan. Okay, I will just stay there with my rook and my king until he advances further enough. And that's all for now. I hope this helps you. It's just a brief video about the Philidor endgame, so hopefully this will help you to understand this endgame. That's all for now. Bye bye, Mauricio Arias here, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.